welcome back to my channel and to today's video, which is kind of becoming a bit of an annual tradition. Today I am sharing some DIY Christmas Poundland hacks that I'm really looking forward to showing you because I really had a lot of fun making these. But as always, when I do make Poundland videos, I try to bear in mind things that you might be able to find elsewhere. There's a couple of items in here that you might be a bit more difficult, but I hope you enjoyed the video anyway, and without further ado, let's jump in and I'm going to share these hacks. So this first DIY is a cushion that I made out of a present sack that actually turned out quite nice, and I now have it in my living room. So if you want to see how I made it, keep watching.
So this is the present sack, as you can see here, but it's quite an awkward size. It's really long and not cushion shaped at all. So I decided to just cut it in half and make quite a long cushion out of it. I had this insert, which is originally from IKEA, and it fit lengthways perfectly. So I just measured and then added an extra few inches for the seam allowance, and then I used a Sharpie to mark where I wanted to cut my line. As you can see, my line was kind of placed just under the top text, so I had a little bit more space to work with at the top of the cushion. So I just took my scissors and cut all the way down the line, and then I had half a bag left over, like so. I placed my insert inside the cushion and I decided to sew it together because I didn't have much extra fabric to work with. I couldn't do a closure that was easy to open and close, but I thought I would sacrifice this one insert and keep this in there all year long. So what I'm doing here is I'm folding the top over to create a really nice clean edge, and then I'm just taking my needle and thread and sewing along the top. I decided to hand sew this as I knew it was too bulky to go through my sewing machine. So to close it, I'm using what I believe is called a whip stitch. You basically just pull the needle through, loop it back around, and keep pulling it through again and again and again. I'm trying to create really tiny stitches here so you can hardly see them on the cushion, but if you'd really like to make them more invisible, you can use, I think, a slip stitch or a ladder stitch, and this will be a lot more invisible. But I was a bit worried about this fabric as it's quite thin, so I just wanted to make sure it was going to hold really tightly. Anyway, when I was finished, this is how the throw cushion turned out. I really like the phrase on the front. I think it's kind of cheeky and just a little bit of fun.
This next project is one that I kind of came up with at the spur of the moment, but I had lots of fabric left over from the last project and I didn't want to just throw it away, so I decided to make these teeny tiny miniature clothing items that I'm going to put on my Christmas tree. And if you don't have this kind of fabric, you can use felt or some kind of like lightweight material will work really well. So I'm just going to jump in and share with you how I did it.
Because I was reusing the old fabric, all I did was unpick the seams down the side, and this gave me as much fabric as possible to make lots of teeny tiny clothing pieces. I flattened out my piece of fabric and laid it down with the right side facing down, and then I sketched out a few little designs for a hat, a sweater and some stockings. These were kind of just rough and I just made a mess of the back of it, but that's okay because you're not going to see the back. When you cut it out, leave a little bit of excess for the seam allowance. I'm just leaving maybe a half a centimetre or so all the way around each clothing piece, and make sure to cut out 2 of each one. I learned this the hard way, but if you're making stockings, 2 of them are going to have to face in the other direction, which I didn't do here, but I did do in the end because I realised I'd made a terrible mistake. So don't make the same mistake as me. Anyway, all I'm doing here is just using a basic running stitch and going all the way along the lines I'd already created earlier with those pieces of fabric right sides together, making sure to leave the opening completely open and not sewing it closed, so that when I was done I had something that looked a bit like this that I could turn inside out, and it turned into a teeny tiny hat. Cut any excess off the edges to make sure that they're not wonky looking, and then you can start decorating this however you'd like. Now my camera cut out for some reason, so I didn't get a clip of me adding this little string to the top. But don't forget to add a string if you want to hang it to your Christmas tree. I just used a little bit of twine and then made sure there was a knot at the top so it couldn't come through the hole that I made at the top. Very simple, or you could glue it on or sew it on. But as you can see here, I'm just decorating this hat with some pom-pom trim. I get these little spools of trim from the range, and I think they're only like £1 or something, really inexpensive. And as you can see, I couldn't help myself. I had to add a big pom-pom to the top of the hat. But I just kind of decorated these for a while, and it was really like therapeutic, and I really enjoyed it. So if anyone wants to hire me just to make teeny tiny Christmas clothing, please do. I also decided to try another approach to sticking the items together to show you that there's 2 different ways to do it, in case you don't like using a needle and thread. And for that, I just used a tiny amount of hot glue all the way around each of the clothing items. Because these don't have to go in the wash, I thought that hot glue might work, and it did. It was a lot quicker and a lot less fiddly, I guess you could say. And for these ones, I'm just decorating them with a different decorative trim. I think overall the little stockings were my favourite, but I really liked the jumper because I was able to use some of the front of the excess fabric for this, and I think it turned out really well. A little bit boxy, but still quite cute. And also the hat. I quite like the hat too. These ones were just really fun to make, which I think was the best part of this whole experience for me, because I just was able to zone out for a few hours and concentrate on making tiny clothes.
So for the next project, I picked up these mini cloches in Poundland, and these are obviously £1. I picked up 3 of them, but you can find them in lots of other stores. I know Primark had them last year, but they are around if you can't find them in Poundland. But I really wanted to get the bits out of the inside and make something out of them. So here's how I did it.
So these are the Christmas cloches, or the light up globes as Poundland call them, and they're almost impossible to just twist off. They've got a little bit of glue on them, so instead of trying that, take a hairdryer and pop it on the hot or the warm setting, and oh my god, my poor reindeer. Then just heat up along the area at the bottom for about 30 seconds where the glue is holding the pieces together. Then you can kind of gently twist them off and pry them apart, and this comes off really easily. You can then pick off all the excess glue. Then with the inside part, I just twisted that and it ended up coming off pretty easily, and it leaves you with this little light at the bottom. So I'm going to reuse that later and put that back together, but for now what I want are the tiny houses, which I'm just going to paint with a little bit of red paint to match my Christmassy theme. I did 2 coats. You could even put some glitter or some fake snow on these. Just go crazy, enjoy, do what you want. And I thought I would stick with a dark green for the trees with this little reindeer. I kept some of the parts of this white because I just wanted that contrast, but you could go all out and paint the whole thing if you'd like, and put them anywhere you want to decorate your house. I think that these look really cute on a shelf or just scattered around with your other Christmas decorations. You could even hang them up on your tree if you wanted to, by just adding a little loop of twine at the top with some hot glue.
With my miniature village finished, I was really pleased with how it turned out, but then I had some extra cloches lying around, so of course I didn't want to throw them away. I had to DIY them.
Poundland do a variety of present toppers, which are kind of just little picks really that you can put in your Christmas tree too. So for the extra cloche, I'm just taking the present toppers and I'm pulling them apart and cutting the stems down and just taking off any of the extra leaves that I thought weren't super cute looking, and then I'm just placing them underneath, and that's really all there is to it. You can try and stack some of these if you'd like. I decided that because I had 3 of these globes, I would separate them and I'd have the red berries in one and then the pine cones in the other one. The pine cones you can also find in Poundland or from your garden if you have a pine tree. And you can also use a bit of super glue to glue these back together if you'd like, but I decided not to because I want to be able to change them out each year. And this is how they turned out. They look good with the lights on or the lights off. It's really up to you how you want to display them.
The next thing you can kind of see above my bed, but it's this giant Garland Tie Star, and it only cost me £2 to make. So here's what it looks like.
Okay, so this one is so easy. You're going to take 2 bags of garland ties. They look a little bit like this, and all you're going to do is start by creating the center of your star. So use a bit of hot glue and place them in an X shape, making sure that all of the points are about the same distance apart from each other. Then from there, we're going to add another X shape on top with 2 more garland ties. So you're using 4 garland ties and you should have 8 points by the end of it. This is how the center of your star should look, and then we're going to build out from each of these points. So to do this, you're going to take another few garland ties, use a little bit of hot glue at the end of the point, and then add a garland tie. Then you'll want to add another garland tie, so a little bit of hot glue at the end of the one you just added and the point next to it, and join these together like so to create one of the points on your star. You can then move on to your next point, so I'm actually starting by joining this one at the top and then attaching it to my center. And this was quite large, my desk is very small, so I ended up filming this off camera on the floor. You want to work with a large work surface for this, but as you can see, this is how it turned out, and for £2 it's quite a large decoration.
So that's all of my projects for today. I really hope you enjoyed them, and I hope it inspired you to go to your local discount store, because it doesn't have to cost a fortune to decorate for Christmas. You can spread a little bit of joy and do some decorating on a budget if you get crafty. Anyway, with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a good Christmassy season, and I'll see you next time. Bye!